presented by Mr. Sunder Madakshira. He is heading the marketing for ADOBE India. Sunder has leadership roles for over 20 years in sales and marketing functions at SAP, Wipro, Infosys, Hindustan Unilever, and Visa. He is a recognized market thought leader and speaker at many industry forums in India. He was recognized amongst the most influential marketing leaders at the World Marketing Congress, Mumbai in 2016. So let's welcome Sunder Madakshira.
So good evening to all of you. Good evening to all of you. I know all of you are very brave hearts. You stayed back till the last session. I'm reminded of when I was just coming in, I saw a few people leave. And I couldn't go back to that moment when all of you would recollect the India versus Pakistan quarterfinals. Remember that in Bangalore? Some of you, most of you were born, I'm sure, right? And it was a match in which India put on a very good total, but Pakistan was on a very good chase. And a lot of people from in the stadium actually walked out, thinking that India is not going to win. My brother was one of them. And he was so sad and so depressed that India is going to lose the match that he didn't even want to come home. So he went with his friends all over Bangalore and then finally reached home just to find that India had won the match. So people who are brave will get to see the best. So I know it's been a long 2 days for all of you. So I would like to sort of reinforce some of the messages that you've probably already heard. And that's also the advantage of being the last speaker. You can keep saying that like so-and-so said, like so-and-so said, and sort of summarize it. But really what I'm here to talk about was about the whole topic of customer experience and the way we are looking at it when we are working with thousands of clients across the world in different parts of the spectrum, and how we are able to bring together the entire solution which actually guarantees that kind of customer success. And what are we seeing behind the scenes? So I've just broken that into 10 common questions that we get as a company about the topic of customer experience. So let me quickly get into that. The first topic, I think very fundamental, is does customer experience really matter? Now this is a convention by IIB on this topic, so we can't say it does not matter. I'm sure it does. So the answer to that question is clearly yes. And I know the previous speakers did speak about the fact that it's not for the NPS, it's not for so many things. It's just to ensure that your customers keeps coming back, and that's the real test for a customer experience framework, right? But having said that, there is some statistics that I'd still like to share with you on our own research, that on an average, the net promoter score for people who are experienced leaders or who have done customer experience well is to the tune of 22 points higher than the people who have not probably done it well. So it means that the NPS is higher by almost 25% in most industries if people do customer experience well, right? So that's the first piece of data. And in two industries, that is media and retail, we have seen that the leaders actually outperform the laggards by as high as 30%. So there's a big difference between companies which do it well and which don't do it well. So therefore, I think it is very important that CX is really good for business. So it makes a lot of business sense to get customer experience right. Now, here is a point I'd like to make. Many of you are probably in roles that do not put you in front of the customer all the time. But you are in those roles which help your organization build a certain solution which ultimately goes in front of the customer, right? And this is a perspective from outside in, which is all about does it matter for you to know about customer experience or not? So the answer is a vehement yes, because you should know where your solution is ultimately going, and is that guaranteeing the customer experience that we are all looking at. So, Adobe has, our positioning is on the topic of making experience your business. So it is really about centering your whole business around customer experience. And why is that happening? I think that's happening because we are in a world today which is seeing an extreme amount of commoditization. No amount of product feature differentiation is really going to get you that cutting edge in the market. So with that given, how do you ensure that the experience that your customers keep getting, irrespective of which industry you are in, is going to determine whether you're going to be successful or not? Do you agree? Do you agree? Right? So I think you've heard a lot of cases since morning which is pointing towards this direction where we are saying that it makes a lot of business sense for you to be investing in customer experience. And we'll get into a few more aspects of it, which is what are the key tenets of a successful or a good customer experience? I think what customers are telling you is simple. Know me and respect me, right? So if you go to any place, buy any kind of purchase, a whole lot of data is actually collected from you. Now, how is the organization or the product or the service actually making use of that experience, of that data? And how is it actually helping them render a better experience? And I will just share a personal experience at the end, which sort of summarizes what are the key tenets that I have seen in my own life, right? So one is knowing me and respect me. Second thing is today's customers and consumers are experiencing content, messages coming from very different sources, right? Just take a simple transaction that a bank does on issuing a credit card. As simple as that. And just see how many interfaces you've had with the bank when you're having this particular transaction. So there's someone who comes, asks you for the credit card, and if whether you want a credit card, you say yes. Somebody else comes in, issues the card, and says that you've got it. A third person comes, gets you to fill up a form, and a fourth person comes and collects it from you, gives it to the fifth person who will put it away somewhere, and after 3 months you get a call from a sixth person who then comes and actually enrolls you, and an eighth person and the 10th person actually handle your entire transaction. This was how the world was. But today I think that's moving very fast, where you're saying, and all these 10 people would have guaranteed you 25 different things when this whole transaction started, right? But today what we're looking at is the customers want to hear one voice. Customers don't understand and do not want to understand the internal silos of a company. So what's that interface? Is the customer experience, the ultimate experience that customer is going to get. So if you have to do this, speak in one voice, and I can tell you as a marketer, the number of channels that I am using today to reach my customers are at least 30 times more than what I was using even 6 years back. So if the company is using so many different channels of communication, how is it that they can actually speak in one voice without you having a proper customer experience strategy behind it? A lot of people, I feel, when we have these discussions about customer experience, get caught in the technology layer. They're very keen about what technology is being used, which is a fair ask. I'm not for a moment advocating that the technology behind customer experience does not matter. It matters and matters a lot. Having said that, I think the end objective that you want to achieve with a certain CX framework is probably more important than the underlying technology, because you've got many options to do that. All of them come with their own strengths and weaknesses. But what's important is, does it guarantee you the ultimate customer experience for yourself as well as for your customers? And lastly, I think this is, Pepsi had a very interesting line many years ago called "Ye dil mange more," which is all about wanting more. I think that line beautifully captured what customers are expecting. Every time, and it's been proven through several research studies, that every time customers and consumers come to and try and buy a product, their expectations are continuously going up. And we're talking about value here, right? And value has two parts. There's a benefit and there's a cost. So customers are constantly expecting the cost to go down or the value to go up or both. Most of the time it's both. So how are customers getting delighted every time you go back and they come and interact with the brand is the primary function from a customer experience tenant. The question is, how do I measure the impact of customer experience on business? So people have invested a lot, and now it's time for them to be actually being able to measure whether that is possible or not. So I think the way we have found that there are three things which we need to do. One is build a KPI into requirements and design. I think very early, whenever you are working on your solutioning for different products or services, there has to be a clear KPI for what customer experience is in your context. Remember that the entire transaction for a customer is a long journey, which could take depending on what kind of transaction this is, it could take anything between a few seconds to all the way to a few years. So imagine that end-to-end journey. Most of us in our roles always get to see a very small part of our journey, and that's the reality, right? We oftentimes don't know the solution that we develop, how is it getting deployed, because never the end solution, it's a part of a solution. But I think there has to be an attempt made by everybody to understand how it's actually working. So when I joined Adobe just exactly 100 days back, and what I spent a lot of time try to do that is to see how our customers are using our products. What is their experience? What are they liking? What are they not liking? What's working for them and what's not working for them? When we build these products, there are certain hypotheses, but how the customers actually are using it and how they're liking it is what is going to be important as they deploy it for their end consumers. And I think if you look at the way data is available in real time today, right? For most organizations, it's available in digital forms, it's available in non-digital forms, and there is a big gray area between which is digital and non-digital. Let's say you're trying to develop a customer experience paradigm for Indian Railways. Look at the amount of data that they have, humongous. And that data is available in different parts and in different sources. Not all of that is electronic. In that scenario, how are you going to look at the data and how are you going to stitch up all the online and offline data to get into your customer experience is going to be very important. And that's a reality. That's not going away in a day, because most companies are in a spectrum. And if you're not able to integrate that successfully, whatever you try to do and provide a customer experience about is going to be extremely suboptimal. So this is how do you measure the impact of the experience. Okay, so this slide has been designed it's also an eye test. I hope the people at the back can see what is written there. No? Okay, good. That was the intent. But the whole thing is, I'll just summarize that for you, that when you're looking at building the tools, this is the quintessential CX architecture that is followed, which is that you have a system of records, which is the basic data operations transaction from the back office, and on top of that there sits a huge analytical layer. It's got data science, it's got CI, it's got DI, it's got marketing performance, etc. And on top of that is the experience layer, which is all about how it's able to crunch these multiple layers and then actually provide the customer experience. So, when we look at what has worked and what has not worked for our customers, most of the times we find that when things have not worked out, it is typically because of the last two layers. It's seldom the final layer, which is what I mentioned. The system of records is not able to successfully integrate different data sets. In the second one, it's the analytical layer. Because they're working on imperfect data, how do you actually, how are they able to analyze the data? And any failure of this can lead to an issue. So let me narrate an incident which I heard about a brand of ice creams in Germany. So in Germany, in the city of Berlin, there are 3 days in the year when it's very, very hot. And in Germany, hot means more than 36 degrees. So it's about 3 to 4 days in a year that it's considered very hot. And the moment the temperature goes up beyond 36 degrees, everybody wants to consume ice creams. And they just want to eat a lot of ice cream. It's like, it becomes like a festival and an event the moment it gets very hot. But it's only those 3 days. Now, as per the data analysis done by this ice cream company, they say that if they are able to service all the ice cream outlets for those 3 days, they will make their year's profits in those 3 days. Right? I mean, you've heard about the Pareto analysis, but this is like not an 80-20 rule, it's 99.99 stroke 0.01 rule, because that's a heavy skew. Very rarely do you find data sets like this, but that's what it was. And how do they do it? Now the question was, it's very clear, just get to optimize your supply chain for those 3 days. But the trick is, this is all about the weather, right? Nobody knows which are those 3 days. You can't predict that. You can have a hunch that it's going to be likely to be in these days, you can predict and do that. So the whole paradigm was, how do they predict which are these 3 days? And very importantly, how do they get their entire supply chain and what's called the cold chain completely activated so that that quantity of ice cream is available for those 3 days. And that whole analysis, the data piece was worked out, and they actually strengthened this piece by which, till we were working with them for a few years, it was at this level, but now it has gone to the experience level where they're actually able to tell customers that, hey, it's likely to be these 3 days, here is what we have created, a unique experience for you. Because this ice cream brand is definitely competing with other cold categories that are also competing with them. So they are looking at, how do you actually convert this system of record, which is there for everybody, but very importantly, how do they build this middle layer, and how are they able to successfully come to the third layer, which is about the experience layer. So these are the tools which definitely help you get there. Whenever we're looking at building these products, I think a lot of organizations that we see have a tendency to outsource this thinking, saying, hey, get somebody who's a customer experience expert. I don't think such a thing exists. This know-how about your business, which is probably the deepest insight that you have inside your business, is available only within the organization, if at all. If it's not available, bad luck. But I don't think it's right to expect an external agency to come with a magic wand and get into this level of detail where we are offering about how do you generate ideas, how do you generate the campaign, how do you do the ideation. All that is strictly not possible by somebody who's coming from outside. I think a lot of people also are trying to just fix stuff. They're saying, hey, let's do this, run this digital marketing campaign, or we're going to be just refurbishing the website. So for that, we need some base level skills. We don't want to be put on the wrong foot or caught on the wrong foot, not having a digital strategy or a customer experience strategy. So just do something and just ensure that there are some base level skills available within the company. I don't think this approach is going to work. But what we really need is a bunch of digitally savvy idea generators and executors, and who can actually think through how they are going to design an end-to-end customer experience. That is going to be critical. You need people to think very differently, and people who are very, very used to different channels, not just digital, but non-digital as well. how does one actually accelerate this whole journey, right? And this is where, this is the other thing that we find, where the roadmap is not very clear. If the roadmap about where you want to get is not clear, there are two issues which we have seen typically happening. One is that customers do not know what expectations to set for themselves. The second thing is they say, okay, look, I think we've got our customer experience paradigm totally wrong. Let's stop everything and then redesign the whole thing, and then we'll come back with a bang. I think this is not going to work, because there is business and there's no idea of a perfect customer experience journey at all. Everybody is in a, as I keep saying, is in a spectrum, and we all have to realize that we cannot stop the current business from running. For example, we discussed so many e-commerce examples just before this. If you just look at those, none of them can stop their business because they want to improve the customer experience. They don't have a downtime at all. There's no such concept. In that scenario, how would you want to actually, learn on the fly, make changes on the fly, and deploy your solutions either digitally or otherwise? That's going to be a key to accelerating your initiatives. The next question is, of course, how do I evaluate who would be the right vendor, who is the right choice? And here are certain things that I've seen work well. I think what we're looking at is an end-to-end solution. So there's no point in looking at this from a point solution, or something that, you let me buy these 5 tools, I know how to stitch it up and make it an excellent customer experience tool. Is not probably going to work. I think what we have to do is to look at the longer vision. That's what we spoke in the last slide, and then build it for the future and not necessarily for today. So if you have a slightly long-term perspective about what you're probably going to be using, long-term nowadays is 3 years. So what are you going to be using for the next 3 years, and then buying for keeping that in mind. Again, something that we have was spoken about in the last session. So I wouldn't. It's the same as what was spoken. So I wouldn't like to repeat it. But this is what we are seeing in terms of how these tools are getting deployed in real time to get higher returns on the customer experience. So if you just look at our own experience about India and what's really driving the growth for companies like Adobe, and what we are seeing with our customers in India, is that number one, I think there's a huge headroom to growth, right? It's a very young country. It's the oldest civilization with the youngest population. There is a huge headroom available now, with internet penetration increasing to an all-time high, mobile usage being very high, internet being accessed through the mobile phone and not through laptops and desktops. So these features are making the Indian market extremely, extremely attractive to all of us. And lastly, I think there's a huge number of initiatives that the government is taking to ensure that the topic of digital is coming central to everybody, and how everybody can actually really penetrate the last mile. That is very, very critical to their success, which honestly was not there a few years back. So we see a great opportunity for customer experience and the digital platforms to be able to reach this large India. If you just look at how do we do this at Adobe, there are essentially 4 steps to it that we take when we're talking about customer experience. One is that the context is just the starting line. What we mean is the context of the customer getting that information is really speaking about the system of records. It is a very basic information. That's just a starting line. That's not the end line. But the context in which somebody is experiencing your brand and your product is very important. Why has the customer come, and why is he visiting your shop? Why is he or she visiting a website or actually making a purchase, returning a product, making a recommendation, commenting, sometime, whining about a complaint about the product. All this is very important for us to understand before we are able to make this kind of, do this kind of messaging. Now, all this was very simple when it was a mom and pop store. But now when businesses have become extremely complex, how do you ensure that the customer experience is uniform, across millions and billions of transactions which are happening with your brand? The kind of data that we are talking about is huge. And in all these things, customers still expect that you are able to provide very, very highly customized messaging that is there. Lastly, I think the milliseconds make the journey. If you just look at the experience people have, every millisecond, every second counts, because customers do not want to wait. They want information which is highly personalized to them and something that they can interact then and there. And lastly, I think it's very important that it's a reality that all of us have disparate technologies, stacks that are available. How do we sort of integrate all that to innovate and get the best customer experience? So these are 4 tenets that come to my mind when we are looking at how we have stitched it up at Adobe. As you know, this is the whole experience cloud that Adobe has, which is the creative cloud for enterprise, the analytics cloud, which is all about the second layer that we talked about, the advertising and marketing cloud, which is right on top of the experience, and then we have the document cloud for the enterprise. This is the Adobe portfolio that is there. I just wanted to bring it up because those of you who are familiar with these products will know how these products actually stack up for the customer experience. I'm reminded by one of the experiences I had a few years back. I was on my way to the US and my flight could not, we landed in Paris and I was supposed to change, and it was raining so badly that our flight just managed to land there, and we were all put into a hotel for 3 days. Not a bad thing to happen in Paris, but just that you had to be inside the hotel for 3 days. And the moment I checked into the hotel, somebody came and asked me what would I like to eat, and he said, can I make a few recommendations? So I was saying, yeah, but I'm a pure vegetarian, and I put so many conditions that, but this person came and said, yeah, I know that you are a vegetarian and you like samosas very much, so would you like that? I said, wow, but how did you know? So this guy said, no, but we just know you. We just know you as a person. I said, yeah, have I grown so fat that just by looking at me, somebody can say that you must be a guy who likes potatoes and fried stuff? So that was after that I joined the gym. Not that I worked out, but I joined the gym, right? But this guy said, no, it's coming from our past. So I just said, hey guys, I'm a marketing guy, I love to know how you've done it. So he said, look, I'm not supposed to tell you, but I'll tell you. We have this data about your past, past visits to our group chain of hotels, and once you went to, Pakistan and you stayed in Karachi, and you had this, this samosa in the middle of the night. You ordered it at 12:30. I said, yeah, but how did you know? My God, FBI. But he said, no, we have the data, it's all captured, and that's how we could make recommendations. So I think there could be a lot of stories about customer experience, and all of you would have had good, bad, and ugly experience, but this definitely is something that I can never forget. And this was in an era where these data analytics tools and integration was not as solid as what it is today, but I think they made an effort. So it just brings me that I just want to end with this another anecdote, which is about analytics, but in a non-data scenario. So I don't know how many of you are from Bombay? Okay, and I think the rest of you have anyway gone to Bombay, right? So there is a place called Fountain, right? Have you all been there? Fountain? and in South Bombay, and there you've got these book stalls which sell books on the streets at a heavily discounted price. Most of them are second-hand books and all that, right? So I went to one of those book stalls. It's a favorite place for book readers because they just go there on a Sunday, keep reading whole day, just sitting on a pile of books, eating a lot of pav bhaji and vada pav and cutting chai. It's become a reading place. All of you who would have seen it would have experienced it. So when you go and buy a book, when you just pick up a book, not buy a book, just pick up a book, there are these boys who are actually selling it. They come and they offer you books and say, do you want to buy this also? They immediately pick up 5 books and say, do you want to buy this book as well? So I got a little curious as saying, so how did you know that I will like that book? So they said, look, you picked up this book by this author, and the other 3 books that I gave you are by the same author. The other 2 are crime stories, and you've picked up a book on crime stories. I said, wow, that's fantastic, data analytics, right? He's done real time. I mean, this can't get more real time than this. But, that's not the point. The point is, I just got a little curious and I started asking, what background are you from? Most of them don't know how to read. They can't read. And these are English books, they can't read English. They can't read any language. They're illiterate people. So I was wondering, how did you know that this is by the same book? He said, वैसा ही दिखता है ना. The name, Robert Ludlum, वही है. वो जो भी है, वही है. He has instantly matched that data sets over thousands of books. It's not, if you see, these bookstores are fairly large. But that is actually integrating data system of records, right, all the way into super fast analytics just by the visual and giving you that ultimate customer experience. Because I would give my right hand to go and read that book there as opposed to any bookstall in the world. Yeah? So I think the same intelligence, if it was scalable in some way, I think would have still worked very well. But what customer experience tries to do with these paradigms helps you to bridge that gap in a world which is largely getting digital now. I can't say fully digital, but largely digital, right? So that's all I had to share with you. Love to take any questions. Yeah. Right.
Yes, so wonderful session. So you made a point about building KPIs into requirements and design. So what could be some of the KPIs? I'm curious to know.
So if you just look at the way we are looking at the whole designing of a solution, which guarantees that ultimate customer experience, I think the KPIs that, if you just go back to that slide. This is the one you're talking about? So there are essentially 2 types of KPIs that we have to design. One is from a customer success, for the entire journey of the customer experience. What are the digital KPIs? Which is all about the internal facing KPIs who are designing the entire digital platform. For example, all the parameters that you're going to measure for your website, for example. Second thing, all the digital transaction operations that you might want to do to fulfill a particular transaction. So it is actually setting up KPIs for the entire customer journey, right from the time that somebody comes in, interacts with your brand, to the time that he becomes a loyal customer advocate, and everything in between. What are the real KPIs that you are going to achieve? Because I'll tell you where this is coming from. I'll quickly finish that point about business KPI and then elaborate on this. And the business KPIs, finally what is it going to come into? how is the customer, how is the business going to be looking at, where are we going to be making our revenues, profits, etc. Now why is this important? Because what we have seen is that if you don't have a clear idea about where you want to really hit, what you want to really achieve at different points in time, the tendency is to ask for the perfect picture on day one, which is not happening. It is a very unrealistic expectation because nothing can stop. So let us say let's take a very simple example of an e-commerce organization, because that fits in well with the from a completeness perspective. If you are not clear what are the elements of your customer experience, what are the KPIs you want to set up. For example, when you are going to a website, what will be the product availability that you want? How much time do you want people to search? What is the intelligence that is available on your website? You go to a website, suddenly you will find some recommendations. Like this boy came running with so many books, whether it is any of these e-commerce sites, they have some intelligence based on your past experience. You go to YouTube, all your past videos that you have watched, similar topics will all be listed there. So how do you want this experience to be? How do you want it to be broken down? And what is that you are going to achieve at different points in time? Otherwise, the fear is that you will be putting too much pressure on the entire system to deliver the best of what is possible. You cannot compare a brick and mortar organization which is in very initial stages of its digital journey or the customer journey to an extremely advanced e-commerce company. They all have very different KPIs. So sometimes we get asked saying, okay, tell me, when you're talking, we're designing this experience, what is your experience with the best in class? It's not a bad idea. You should, from an awareness perspective, from the art of the possible, it's still a great idea. But is it practical all the time? I don't think so. I think you should be very clear, even when you are, as business analysts, when you are advising your customers about what these KPIs should be.
Hi Sundar.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for that wonderful session. I have a question on the customer segmentation, which is extremely critical when it comes to customer experience. And I'm obviously inspired by your question number 9 about the India market. So what I wanted to ask you is, typically as business analysts and business leaders, when we work in an engagement, and when we try to do the customer segmentation, there is one extreme where we can consider every customer as one entity, or there is the other extreme where every individual can be treated separately. So if you typically look at the Western world, where there are specific customer segmentation, market segmentation, a template-based approach, and when you look at India, almost every individual is treated differently. They have different taste, interest. So as business analysts or business leaders, how do we figure out where to stop going down, where to decide, okay, these are the depth in which we are going to go down when it comes to customer segmentation, which is going to define the customer experience?
Sure, thanks. I think that's a very good question. It's about hyper segmentation, right? One can get very hyper on that. So if you just see, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit when I say this, and I'll tell you why. If you just look at the way we look at any market, what today the customer expecting is that they want something which is absolutely highly customized to their requirement. And this is a no-brainer. All of us want something which is very, very relevant to us. We don't want to be wasting others' time and our time by the brand trying to tell us something which we don't want. It's simple. That's the ideal situation. But to me, I think to the question about where you should stop is, you should stop when you realize that further segmentation is only going to be an academic exercise, and your brand has no way of actually serving so many segmentation. It becomes a very academic exercise. It's good to put that as a case study in Philip Kotler's book. But the point is, at what time will you say that, look, this segmentation makes sense because this is what I can ideally serve through my portfolio of products, number one. Further segmentation is only going to complicate the way I'm going to be organizing my own, my whole organization structure in terms of sales, marketing, product development, etc. But what I will try and look is, are there newer segmentation bases which are coming. As a marketer, I will be very vigilant towards the fact that are there new segmentation bases which are emerging, right? That is where I feel the advantage of segmentation based on personas actually comes in, because it helps you to marry demographic, psychographic, psychological, geographic data and be able to still target. So let me, I unfortunately can't name the client, but we are working with a client now which sells UPS systems. So they threw a challenge saying that, you're talking about customer experience. How is it that you will help me reach my customers? I sell UPS for domestic purposes. So what is the idea of how will you help me with this? So we said, okay, we'll do this, but there is one thing. So every time there is a power failure in a particular area, you will find the ad for that UPS thing popping up on your Facebook and other places. How simple we've actually, if you are able to fit a particular device or a SIM card or whatever, which can actually give you information back about how you are going to, that there is a power failure which has happened in Jayanagar, if you are from Bangalore, and across so many kilometers this has happened. So you just do a geofencing in Facebook and release an ad over there. So is this like, is it going, will it help the company to go any further? I don't think so. I think they should stop here. So look at the other challenge that we are facing with a very large cola brand. Now these people have a challenge. They say, look, we are always dependent on celebrity endorsements, right? Cricketers, Virat Kohli, right? Now he's gone and we've shot an ad, World Cup Champions Trophy or IPL session is going on. He's the star, so he will be our brand ambassador. So we shoot an ad which says, look, this guy is playing so well, and it's all about his attitude and his fitness and that and this, etc. is doing well. Now what happens if Virat Kohli gets out first ball? What do you have? What do you do? You've already bought the spots, right? That ad is going to play 500 times and remind everybody that he got out on the first ball. It's not going to remind people that he's hit 25 centuries and I don't know how many 50s, etc. That doesn't matter. Now earlier there was nothing that you could do about it, because the ad has been shot, only one version of the ad has been shot, it's been broadcast on television, end of story, right? But today in the digital world it's possible, because what they had done is that they are actually shot different ads. One which is showcasing Virat as the hero in the ad, the other one is more normal, saying that he also can fail, and several neutral ads. Now earlier even if you had shot it wouldn't have helped, but today since all that is available in digital formats, you are able to program it in a way that on YouTube, most people watch cricket on YouTube, so you on YouTube, on television, you are able to change the content which is available real time. So you can change it. So how much of segmentation? I think guided more by fact that how many of them can you serve effectively, and second thing, I think trying to segment more on the basis of personas is useful. Yeah. Any further questions?
Hi Sundar.
Yes.
From yesterday I'm hearing about this customer experience for too long.
I'm sorry, my sympathies with you. Yeah.
So as a BA, what I want to know is who is my customer, who's my user, who's my client, and who's my end user. I'm a little confused there.
Who are these people?
As a BA, yeah.
Okay. So it depends on what is your BA charter, right? If your charter includes developing it for the end consumer,
okay,
for your customers. For example, let me give you an example, right? Let us say you are developing a ticket booking solution for you are an aggregator, you are Make My Trip, okay? Then your immediate the end user to book this is your final consumer. Your consumer and your end user are the same, because it's the end consumer who is going online and booking it. It could also be a travel agent. Okay? Your immediate customer, the people who are there, who are going to be using this, is your sales organization, because they are the people who are going to be promoting it across several airlines and asking them to list these offers.
So when I create a solution, I have to take in my mind the end user as well as the sales guys, which you.
So in this case, you will always think about the end consumer.
End consumer.
That's what I said is not going to be always easy, because seldom do we get a chance, or do we even have the knowledge about who that person is for whom we are going to be developing the product. If you have that end view, I think that will be fantastic, and you should try and put yourself in their shoes, because what will happen is ultimately the success of this whole solution is going to be dependent on the entire solution being stitched end to end. So it doesn't work. I was sharing with somebody yesterday when we were discussing about this topic, that when you're looking at something like this, if you leave it only to the end, to somebody else saying, look, it's not my lookout, somebody else is going to deliver the solution, I will do what is visible to me, it's going to be very suboptimal. It will come back to you as a bigger problem tomorrow when the solution does not work. I don't know, I started my career with a manufacturing organization, so I can give you an example, and many of you might be able to relate to it. In the manufacturing companies, there was a thinking called quality control, which said that everybody in the company can commit all the sins they want, okay, but in the end there will be an inspector, you literally call it the quality inspector, who will catch if the product is not right, and but nothing happens, he just sends it back and life goes on for everybody. But that was a very suboptimal model, because you had spent a lot of time, lot of cost building a bad or making a bad product by that time. So if you have interventions which are possible all along the journey, where you get to know what is the final product, will always help you not make those mistakes. So if I make that mistake, what is the biggest problem? The person standing next to me in the supply chain is going to suffer. It's going to tell on him. If you just build the same analogy in the digital world, you should try and see whether you are able to build it for the end consumer, and not necessarily only for the intermediate areas. Many organizations have very hybrid models. They have several layers. There is one set of systems which are working for the internal organization. There is another one working for the end consumer. If these two are not aligned in every possible way, what will happen is that they will never work as an integrated system. Number one, you're putting too much effort, too many bets you are placing on the UI designers or the end designers to be talking only to the consumer. We really find it very odd. Many of our customers, when they want to start rethinking their digital journey, you'll be surprised, many of them come back and say they want to refurbish or redesign their website. That's not the place to start. It's actually to start from the other way, saying what is the end result that you want from the whole customer experience. Start from the system of records and then build it other way around, because that becomes very obvious and what you have to do there. Otherwise, you'll have a fantastic website which does not do anything in the back end. It's a quick fix for a problem that does not exist. You got a much bigger problem to solve behind.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, Sunder.
Yeah.
I would like to know
Sorry.
the KPIs, business KPIs and digital KPIs. Are they defined by the business or by the business analyst?
By the business.
By the business.
Yes.
The digital KPIs also.
Yes.
Can you please elaborate
See,
on that?
I think the way you should do it is that the business KPI should be defined by the business head, or who are looking at the final the deliverable of that particular solution. The people who have to measure, you need some intermediate measurement also. that is looking internally. For example, if somebody is designing a digital campaign, let's say, take a simple example, you're launching a new product on the net. Let's take that example. You've deployed a certain number of digital marketing tools. How those tools are working from an efficiency perspective is to be defined by the digital marketing team, because that's internal, that the customer does not see. What it should deliver to the customer is going to be decided by the business team. What do they want? What is the downtime they want? What is the transaction time do they want? How will you increase the number of visits? How will you make them stay on a website for a long time? All that is to be defined by the business.
Yeah, so all these KPIs will be defined in the discover phase of a product?
Yes.
Okay.
The initial stage when you want to set expectations. Sure.
Yeah. So in last 2 days, we are hearing about a lot of examples on the services side. Maybe it may be the retail, e-commerce, or something. So my question is on the product side. Let's say if an FMCG company is there which manufactures goods and delivers to the customers. So how does it enhance the customer experience? Only by the value side, or is there other means where they can increase the customer experience?
Sorry, I didn't get the last part.
So my question is like, it's only the value part of the product which enhances the customer experience, or is there any other means which a company can enhance the customer experience? Maybe it may be the textile industry or FMCG which manufactures soaps, textiles, kind of stuff. Is it the only value part which enhances the customer experience, or or they can do some other means which will help the customer to experience a better way?
So definitely value is going to be is a very integral part of the customer experience itself. Let's say, for whatever reason a product has been sold to you, but it's still not delivering what value you want. It could be an emotional value, it could be a much more measurable value in this case that you're talking about FMCG products. In either cases, I think there is a lot of scope for you to enhance the whole buying experience itself, right? For example, how do you actually, what stories can you build across, across the brands? There are so many products which have built excellent stories around their own product. Let me give an example. I can't take the name again. It's a brand which I used to work for many years, and it is a fairness cream. Okay, and they used to say one thing that I asked the brand manager of that particular brand, look, does this cream work or not? He said, of course it works. I said, hey, come on man, how does it work? So he said it works, at least on people's mind. I'm not too sure whether it works on the skin, but it works on the mind. But I was just tracking how that brand, even when the digital channels were not available, built a huge story around how that is going to be successful. So the whole task about storytelling across a brand is a part of that experience, right? You would have heard many products being sold by P&G. They talk about where this particular product is being sold, what is the social purpose sometimes it is serving. How do you build a community? Because people don't really buy products, they buy solutions to their problems, right? So how are you able to enhance that experience? Remember, in the case of a B2C product, an FMCG product, the big difference is going to be that the involvement is very low, especially when there is no food product. If it's a food product, emotional involvement is extremely high. Financial involvement might still be less. So you have to tap on that experience, saying that, okay, how do I provide that experience around the emotional connect that is possible? Many brands have done it very well. They are able to build that end-to-end experience even in the case of B2C products. Look at Dove. You can go to any part of the world. Their messaging, the way they are able to talk to their target audience, get a very seamless messaging in any part of the world. I think they've done it fabulously. So the value, yes, you can't change it too much, but there is scope for there's enough scope for you to take that from the perspective of the customer experience there as well. It depends on how much of an enhanced thinking you want to do from a branding perspective. Yeah.
I might have perceived it in other way. So while creating those KPIs, maybe this are created during the strategy analysis phase. So for example, if I'm creating the business need, if I'm getting the business need, so it will go hand in hand, like in parallel, or like this will be like created as per the business case that I have.
I don't think I understand.
Like when will be the KPIs, like on which phase these KPIs will be created? Once I'd be having the business case, or like before that also?
No, the business KPIs have to be set first.
Okay, according to that I have to
Yes.
like create the business cases.
Yes.
Fine.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience. I think the business and the IIB, thanks to Ashish and his illustrious team here, they've thought about a very relevant topic. I think this is the topic that we are hearing, recociating again and again with everybody, and I'm glad that you had the foresight to organize the whole event, and congratulations to all the brave heart. And I'm happy that the business analysis convention is happening on Varmahalakshmi Day. It shows customer experience has some business value, so there's money in it. So Lakshmi Puja ke din hua hai, so it's very nice. And so love to stay in touch with all of you. We've got very interesting stories about how we have done it for our customers. So do visit some of our websites and some very, very unconventional usages of, I'm sorry, I'll just take 30 more seconds. There was once a very interesting use case of a company which actually supplies air conditioning solutions to large buildings. For example, it could be something like the Niman's hospital, right? So they provide cooling solutions. So we were saying, how do they employ or deploy something like a digital solution? What is digitization and customer experience for them? They said something very nice. They said, look, our purpose is clear. Our focus is not the end consumer. Because the end consumer or the customer comes too late. He will come to know that a cooler or a chiller, as they call it, doesn't work. He will come to know only when the room starts to heat up. Okay, and just imagine that happens, unfortunately, in a hospital situation, then it could have many serious repercussions, right? So for them, they have a very interesting use case about how they deploy a digital parameter. So they have a gauge, they have an electronic gauge which actually helps them understand the health of the chiller, which keeps measuring whether the chiller is working properly or not. Very rarely does the chiller just stop working overnight. It takes some time, it shows some signs of aging, as they call it, and that is what they are monitoring real time with their central digital system. So the moment the chiller is going down or likely to go down, they have a predictive analysis system which tells them that, look, this chiller is going to fail now. So the moment that happens, their central control system gets the information. They are able to sell the service guy with the spare parts that are required to rectify that. So that guy comes straight and knocks on the door and say, hey, your chiller is going to stop now, but don't worry, I'm here to fix it. So that happens really ahead of time. And they've seen that downtime, and they were measuring it, come down from a whooping 98% to 1% by using this particular tool. So it was a very interesting discussion with 20 different customers, all of them having very different ideas about what customer experience means for them. So thank you for having me here, and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Sunder. That was very, very nice.